Let's get started. Like I said, I'm going to take about the first 5 minutes and I'm going to buzz through the rest of these pictures that I didn't get to because there's some fascinating stuff on there, to say the least. But more importantly, for the second seminar, I want to go through some of the equipment and tools and diagnostic stuff that you'll find that's really, even though they call them special tools, don't get scared. It doesn't mean the price tag is going to cost you a second mortgage, because it won't. This is how the C-Ray finished up on the shore power. And this is the next little project. This one here was not too long ago. I don't guess I have to try and hide the fact that it was a 38 Commander, right? Fatigue strips on the flybridge floor. GPS plotter quit working. This is important. How many people in here have a Garmin unit? Listen up and take notes. I'm about to teach you something that I just learned. Garmin plotter unit has two safeties built into it. Both safeties do the same thing. They power the unit off. The bad thing that I don't like about Garmin is when I called to find out why this unit was powering off and where I could send it to have it fixed, the first thing they said was, your unit's older than 5 years, we don't support it. We won't fix it, we don't have parts for it, and we won't even look at it. 5 years, that's sad. If you don't have more faith in your product in 5 years, we've got issues. But the guy was nice enough to tell me on the phone. He said, tell me what it's doing. I said, it comes up, turns on, boots up, gets to the chart. As soon as it acquires satellites, it shuts off. He said, we've got two protection circuits built into every unit that we make. So both of them power the unit off. The first one is low voltage. If it senses under 12 volts, generally 11, I think he said 11.5 to 11.8, it will shut the unit off. It will say, I don't have enough voltage to operate, and it will shut it off. That being said, you also want to make sure you have a really good ground on your power cable. Low voltage is the first one. The second one is a thermal breaker. If the unit heats up, it will shut itself down as well. Now, I already knew I had good power. I just rewired this boat not long ago. So there was no question, but I checked it anyway. Went back with a digital meter. I got plenty of voltage. Everything's fine. The ground's good. On a whim, I took the coax cable off the back of the plotter. Just dropped it off to the side, powered the plotter up, the thing ran forever. Just kept going and going and going. Other than a little message that kept popping up saying no GPS acquired, or no satellites acquired. So at that point it was time to find out what was going on. I have seen some Garmin mushroom antennas acquire water inside sometimes and go bad. So I went up to the bridge and got the antenna and pulled the antenna off. The antenna's fine, don't see anything wrong. Climb up underneath the bridge and this is what I found. This is a coax cable that's been whacked into, twisted together and taped up. Somebody else did it. The owner didn't do it. Can't blame him. I know the guy that did it. I can blame him. But anyway, so after I found this, I started taking pictures. After I got the tape off, this is what I found. Center conductor's twisted together, shielding's twisted together, and the whole thing's taped up. Now, what this does is this creates a high resistance. Coaxial cable works on SWR, standing wave. For those of you that were around the CB days, you know what SWR is. When the standing wave gets high, it means that you have a high resistance in the coax. When you get a high resistance in the coax, high resistance will actually heat up the components in the unit. It makes the unit work harder, which is why the unit was shutting itself off. It had a high resistance, it was heating up, the thermal breaker was kicking, the unit was off. Trip down to your local Radio Shack store. By the way, if you cut a coax, it's not the end of the world. There's some people that say never cut a coax. It's not the end of the world. Get down to Radio Shack, buy yourself a $3.29 coax cable splice. They make them for all sizes of coax. Just make sure you seal it up good on each end when you're done with it. Tie it up out of the way. Underneath that cover, there is a block that has two connections. The first connection is your center conductors go in, Phillips screws tie them down. Your second one, your shield goes down and you crimp it. Pull the cover over top, you've remade your connection, and it's a sealed connection. After you put that back in line and you bring up your plotter, this is what you should have on your bar graph. And that's how we finish that job out. So if the coax cable's cut, it's not the end of the world. It's just not a good way to go. Head gasket. Anybody ever seen one? Go ahead.
Just step back for 1 second here. I just want to comment on the Garmin thing. My Garmin, I have 3 of them now.
Okay.
And they're all late 90s vintage that I bought brand new back in the day. About 2-3 years ago, started running into battery issues. It's got an internal memory battery. It looks like about the size of a sweet tart.
Yeah, it's a lithium.
Yep. So took it to my buddy, electronics geek down there at 40 Yacht Club. He said, "Oh yeah, I'll take care of that for you." He said, "That battery's about 25 bucks. He goes, "I can put it in about an hour or so." Got a cold solder. He said, "That's a real pain in the butt, do a cold solder." I called Garmin to find out if they supported anything. Got the same thing you did. When I said 1999, 180, and a 230, they laughed at me. They're like, "Dude, we don't even recognize that. We don't even know what that number is hardly."
They don't even have the same employees there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they're all retired. Exactly. So, anyways,
well, that was a 178. You see that?
Yeah.
It's from 2004.
Well, yeah, mine isn't even colored. My 180, the 180 is a small version of the 230. 230 is a big old monster. But anyways, so I had my buddy fix it for me. He put the battery in it, thinking I was good to go, and powered up. No memory. It kept on flashing up that message. So Jim Thomas, that I came up here with at the 41, he upgraded to the latest, greatest new one, and gave me his old 180. Said it still works, but it needs battery. My son got the battery for $6 online. It took him approximately 30 seconds to solder that thing in there, put it in there, and that thing works absolutely perfect fine, probably for another 10, 15 years.
Yep.
You know, Garmin just wants to, you know.
I want to show you.
They're on
Yeah,
the new
exactly.
models.
It's like Microsoft.
Yeah.
Functional.
Yeah, unbelievable, man.
Leah, we're about ready to write a check for a Garmin system, so
I'm all about Garmin. I got no problem with them.
Oh, they're great.
Their tech service is fantastic. I mean, listen to the other side of what I was just saying. This guy says we don't support this unit based on what you told me. Here's where you need to go look. You took me right to the problem.
so you're still saying I should go with the Garmin? Because
Oh,
I've done a lot of
absolutely.
research, and I like what it does. And
Garmin makes good equipment. Furuno makes good equipment. I used to love Furuno.
Or just buy an iPad, pay $6.95, and get all your charts on there, and then you got a big screen.
Well, it's all
I
in what
want
you
the
want to use it
Sunlog, and
for.
I want the Sonic Sunlog, the chart, the whole thing.
I installed the, for those of you who've been to West Marine, the biggest Garmin system, the touchscreen, the 5000 series, I installed that on a 42 Commander, and it was beautiful. I love that piece of equipment. It will take you forever to install it, but it's...
Well, ShipShape's going to put it in, but we're going with the 540.
You're going to like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Either that or somebody better come up with a different recommendation.
Yeah, no,
We're
Garmin,
ready to sign.
I love Garmin.
Okay.
I have no problem with it. The only issue I have is with a company that puts out a product that won't support it for more than 5 years.
Amen.
But at the same time, there really wasn't anything wrong with the product. It was the idiot that took the knife and whacked the coax cable.
Sure.
You know, but at the same time, tech support says, you know, hey, we don't work on it, but here's where you need to go look. That to me is great customer service. Because he could have just said, hey, sorry about your luck, Chuck, go get you a new unit. And oh, by the way, may I recommend our newest, latest, greatest?
Sure.
And he didn't do that. So that means a lot.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
So you're doing the 540?
Yeah.
That's still a small unit, though.
We've all heard on the
You
forum,
can get the adapter.
blown head gasket. I might have a blown head gasket. I just took this picture because I wanted somebody to see that hasn't seen one. This is what a blown head gasket looks like. These are your cylinders. These are where your pistons are. These are your water passages. Your oil passages are generally in the middle. These should be closed. We're going to talk about diagnostics here in just a minute, but I wanted to throw that picture out there. When people talk about my head gasket might be leaking just a little bit, usually when a head gasket goes, it goes. I do have the other side to this engine, and I'll show it to you in a little bit. Okay. First off, this was about 60 pounds heavier. But,
Is that Whitney's 55? Nah, it's mine.
damn, Byron, I wasn't going to call you out. I told you that in the beginning. This was, well, since he called himself out, this was when Byron first bought his 42. This was before the diesels. This was before all the wood upgrades. This has been years ago now. But Byron had one request, and I've had several other customers have the same request. I want you to find every wire that has no purpose in my boat, and I want it out of here. Byron and I spent the better part of a solid day and a half, and this is what we ended up with.
I pulled that much out of 20 days.
Yep. And I'll be honest, I'm sure we didn't finish the job, because I'm sure when he did the diesels, he probably pulled out 2 times that much. Or when you put the diesels in. But this just gives you an idea. I entitled this picture, when I had my website, I entitled this picture 40 years of previous owners. Because I promise you, 90% of that wiring was not from the factory. And there was some. I mean, the old original Chris Craft Cruise Control came out, and the autopilot came out, but the majority of that wiring was put in by somebody, not by the factory. Just gives you an idea, though, and it's the same thing when I do that on every boat. I'll come out with that much wire. Just about every time. This picture here is a neat picture. Of course, everybody knows this engine's what? This is a 427. It's also a closed cooling 427. Which means it runs right on the borderline of overheating every time it runs, right? How do you like these wire looms? The guy does a nice job of keeping his plug wires dressed. Everybody agree? Can anybody see what those wire looms are made of before I go to the close-up? Who said wire ties? That's exactly what they're made of. Check this out. I saw this and I was like, that is the most ingenious wire loom I've ever seen.
That is cool.
They are neat, they are uniform, they are clean, and they'll fit every application.
Except for one question. You go to replace one wire. How do you cut that carefully enough with a pair of dikes so that you're not going to cut into the wire?
You said it already. You answered your own question. Carefully.
Yeah, I'm just like, very careful. One slip with a good knife, you're going right through that wire.
But I got to tell you,
That's cool.
that's ingenious.
I gotta do that.
Lee, sharp knife in there.
Question.
That's got my name on it.
Yeah.
I've got a 410 with 427s in it. They're closed cooled, and I'm running at 179, 180. Is that? Am I where I should be?
You're up there, but you're okay. You're probably running 160 thermostats, which means they're fully open at 172. That's when they're free flowing.
Okay.
They're fully open at 172. They shut back down about 155 and 158.
So 179, 180, I'm all right?
Yeah, I don't like anything over 200.
Well, I just noticed a little bit of paint burn on the below the manifold. I'm just a little concerned that
On
that's
which manifold?
starboard engine on the inside manifold.
Exhaust manifold?
Yes,
Where's the paint burning? Is it burning on the outer shell or is it burning up next to the engine?
up next to the top of the engine.
Don't worry about it. That's where
Okay.
your exhaust is. There's no
Right.
water there.
No,
There's no water there. It's gonna burn. It's just like the intake manifold where the carburetor sits. You've always got that port on either side of the carburetor.
Yes.
There's no water there. It's gonna
Right.
burn the paint. You can paint until the sun goes down.
okay.
I brought this just as a fun fact. Everybody that's in the club has either read my article that I wrote in Styled one year, or has met this guy, or Tina, that's my alarm. It's time to wake up my son. But it's Saturday. Don't worry about it. How many people have heard of the story of the good ship Independence?
Yeah.
This is the before picture.
Oh my God.
That's the way he bought Independence down in Florida. That's what it looked like. 3 pumps holding it afloat.
That's 61, right?
Hmm?
61?
No, it's a 50.
55,
No, I meant year.
1951.
Wow.
It's 50, no, 61, 1961, 55,
Right,
Connie.
right, yeah.
She has the original power in her.
431.
No. She's got 8B Detroits in her.
8B53s.
Oh, wow.
I like how they patched over the porthole there in the front on the
So, you know, some of us are crazy. Some of us have a love and a passion. I fit into both categories, as I'm sure most of us do. I mean, we've got legends just in this room of people who have done things that not anybody can do. But for those of you that haven't seen the good ship Independence, that's the after picture.
How much did he drop?
You know, there's some people that really just don't disclose that amount. But the part that impresses me more than the amount of checks he wrote is the fact that he told me when I interviewed him for the story that he was still with the same wife.
Ask him what he dropped on that.
She has her own stateroom.
Do you think we could get her to speak next year?
Sure. Tom Kenny has a website that is probably one of the best websites I've ever seen in my life for somebody that likes to document. It doesn't matter whether you have a Commander, a Connie, a Bayliner, or an aluminum pram. This website is by far one of the best websites to learning information about maintenance and taking care of your boats. And it's tfkltd.com. But I will get the link and I will put it on my Facebook page and my website so that I make sure that y'all can get it. But what you're looking for, if I gave you the wrong address, Google Tom Kenny. It's two first names, but that's his last name, Kenny, and it's Independence is the name of the boat.
Where you can go through.
He literally has about 14 tabs across the top of every procedure, every demo, every rebuild, every rehab. And I mean, he even goes to the information of the proper way of dealing with mold on your boat. He will tell you the parts of bleach, the parts of water. Here's the products he used. You want to know about fasteners? Oh my God, this guy gets technical with fasteners. I mean, he will tell you the thread count, the length, the strength, the tensile strength, the load strength. Trust me, his website alone is an encyclopedia that I keep quick linked. It's just great. But this boat now sails under her own power from boat show to boat show up and down the East Coast. He was at St. Michael's last year. He was at the Chris. He generally goes to the CCABC and the what's the antique? It's Antique Society. What's ABYC?
Antique Classic Boat Society, ACBS.
ACBS. He does go to the ACBS shows as well. But her home port is Longport, New Jersey, which is up near Egg Harbor Land. About once every 2 years, he hauls her out for maintenance. I haven't been on it.
Did he replank her?
Just about.
Not completely. I'm sure he replanked what needed to be replanked and rehabbed everything else. But I tell you, you can literally spend a full Sunday just going through that website and looking at all the work he's done. I mean, he will start at the beginning photo and he will go step by step of every single thing he did to that one little area until it's done.
It's FTK.
FTK LTD. So, anybody know whose boat this is? Scott Hush. This is just another one of our more famous project boats. Anybody? A guess? That's Gajax. That's Mr. Greg Gajax's boat. That's the only 35 that I know of in existence that runs 496 cubic inch, 8.1 liter multi-port fuel injected GMs and now has a beautiful blue hull.
Her generator's in my bills right now.
Yep. And then I showed this one earlier. This is my big top. This is my winter projects. And it looks like we're done with the pictures, so let's go with the toys now. You want to get that off for me? We talked this morning about mechanics and technicians. And everybody now knows the difference between the two. I tell everybody that I work with, 75% of the work that I do, 75% of the time that you're paying for, is not fixing your boat. It's finding out what went wrong. The testing and the diagnostics make up almost 3/4 of the time that I spend fixing something with your boat. The reason, like I said earlier, is you not only want to find out what broke, you want to find out why it broke so that you can hopefully keep it from breaking again. Real quickly, some of the tools that we've talked about on the forum that I'm going to go through here. This is called a refractometer. A refractometer is one of the most accurate pieces of test equipment that you can use when you're winterizing. Very important, winterizing, especially for you guys up here. We don't winterize as hard down south, but why is a refractometer important? You can take that little squeezy bulb thing and count the little balls that come up in your antifreeze. With this, you take a sample of what comes out of one of your drain ports, and it takes 2 drops. You take 2 drops, drop it on the lens, flip it closed, and you hold it up to a light and you look through. When you look through, you're going to see a scale on it. The first drop that I'm going to put on this, because I'm going to pass this around and let y'all take a look at it, is just pure distilled water.
You sure?
Yep.
Came out of the right drug?
Yep. Don't forget, I know your friends at the Sheriff's Department.
So does this give you a number when you look through it, or?
It puts a scale, there's a scale on there, and what it tells you is it will tell you the freezing point, or the freeze level of the fluid that's on it. Now it will actually test 3 different things. It will test ethylene glycol antifreeze, it will test polypropylene glycol antifreeze, which we call the RV pink stuff. The ethylene glycol is the green stuff. It will also test the specific gravity of battery acid. So it's actually a 3-in-1 tool. Not very expensive, if I remember right, under $100. But the peace of mind it gives you of the fluid that's actually in your engine. And what I tell people to do, you need to get this to a light source to be able to see the screen. Just pass that around. And you can turn the thing like a binocular. You will see where the blue window and the white window come together and you read the chart. It's that simple. The way you use this is after you've run the antifreeze through your boat during winterizing, you go to your drain plugs down the side of the block, go to your drain plugs at your manifolds, take a small sample out of each one, read it in that. There's no question in your mind where the fluid all the way through your engine is at for a freeze point. Great piece of equipment. I'm going to pass this catalog around, because this is the company that I got it from, and I'm actually told if you tell them you're with the Commander Club, you might get a discount. Spare Scientific is the name of the company I got it from.
What does a piece of equipment cost?
I'm pretty sure that was under $100. Yeah, I want to say the 50 to 75 range, if I'm not mistaken. They got all kinds of cool gadgets in there too, by the way.
So the purpose of it then is to make sure that you have enough antifreeze through the whole system.
Yep.
And that it's accurate in each area of your system from the bottom to the top.
If you take that squeezy bulb tool, I got one of those in here somewhere.
Right, like on a Q, you can open up.
Take it off your radiator cap and pull that out. That tells you what the freeze point is for that area. It doesn't tell you at the bottom of your exhaust manifolds. Now, how many people in here know that pure 100% undiluted antifreeze in the jug, if you buy it from the store, will freeze?
Yep.
Yep.
Looks like Jello.
It will freeze. How many people know that the pink stuff will actually freeze? But what's the difference? Pink stuff shrinks. It actually slushes. But if you go through the archives in the Super Disc, you will see that Dick Moreland actually posted one time that he had winterized his boat and he'd run the pink stuff through everything, and before he went home that night, he looked in the ice maker on the boat. The first thing he noticed was pink ice cubes, and he thought that was so cool, and he closed the ice maker. He got home about 2 o'clock in the morning. All of a sudden, he sat up in his bed and he said, "Oh, crap.
That's not exactly
Pink
how
ice cubes?" So then he started doing some research, and he made one of his great, long, educational posts about how the stuff works. And yes, in fact, it does get a little solid, but it doesn't expand. And it's the expansion that breaks stuff. I am going to get to the Super Disc today. Don't worry, we will get there. Back to diagnostics. How many people in here have a closed cooling system? How many people in here have a pressure tester? Okay. A pressure tester at any AutoZone or Advanced Auto Parts. You ever heard of their rent-a-tool program? Where you can go in, you can rent a tool for the day, and the way it works is you go in, you rent the tool. What you do is you give them the money for the tool. And then if you take it back, you get all the money back. So it's really a borrow a tool program. But here's the deal. You can get this pressure tester. The last time I got one, $75. $75 comes with every attachment to do your boat, your car, your motorcycle, anything you want. Pressure tester will tell you if you've got an issue with a head gasket. Pressure tester will tell you if you have an issue with an intake gasket. Pressure tester will tell you if you've got a loose hose clamp. Okay? It's real simple. You take the cap off, put this on. You read on your cap the pressure that your cap is. You've got a chart right here. Pump it up, let it sit, come back in about 15 minutes. If the needle's still in the same place, you don't have a problem. If the needle's dropping, you got a problem. How does it?
You do that cold?
How can you? Yeah, absolutely. How do you? You say you can check a head gasket. What's the easiest way to check a head gasket with a pressure tester? Take all your spark plugs out. Pump it up to pressure. If you're still dropping pressure and you can't find a leak, bump the engine over with the starter. Whichever hole the antifreeze comes out of, there's your answer. So again, less than $100, give you many uses. It's a fantastic thing to have aboard.
Can you over pump that? So, I mean, I would think it would be good if you could actually pump it up and force something to happen to cause a problem.
Remember that most of the plumbing on your boat is hoses and clamps. Yeah, something's going to happen. You're going to blow a hose and then you're going to sling antifreeze everywhere. Don't pump it up past the rating for your cap. Next piece of equipment. How many people in here have one of these? How many people don't know what this is? Okay. This is what I call my fun little toy.
Oh, is that a heat thing?
I can use it as a pointer on my slideshow, or I can tell you exactly what temperature drop your heat exchanger has. This is an infrared thermometer. And this is one of the, if you ever had an absolutely must-have on your boat for a stocking stuffer, for a birthday present, for a just, hell, I saw one and I gotta have it, this is it. This thing, you know, a lot of the posts that I read on the Commander Club forum talk about heat exchangers. I don't think my heat exchanger is doing a good job. I'm running a little bit hotter on this engine than I am on this engine. I put a water pump in this engine, I've done this on this engine, and I've done... You can take this tool right here and you can pinpoint down to a small spot where a problem is on any engine. If you have a diesel, this is a great tune-up tool for a diesel. Anybody know why?
Check the exhaust manifolds.
Exhaust temperature.
Exhaust temperatures, you'll find.
If you've got a cylinder down on a diesel, or if you've got a cylinder that's not running to efficiency on diesel, you're going to have this temperature, this temperature, this temperature, this one's going to be colder. All your exhaust ports on your diesel should run the same temperature. That's the easiest way to tell if your diesel's hitting on all cylinders. Heat exchangers. You point the laser on the input of the heat exchanger, it gives you a digital readout. You go to the output of the heat exchanger, you point the laser on it, you read the readout. We're looking for no less than a 20-degree drop in a heat exchanger. If your antifreeze is coming in at 200 degrees into the heat exchanger, I want it going back into the engine at no hotter than 180. If you don't have a 20-degree drop from the time it comes in to the time it dissipates the heat from the system, you've either got a raw water problem or it's time to get the heat exchanger serviced, which means you're going to take it to a place and have it acid boiled and put back together and cleaned up. It doesn't have to be clogged to not be working. It can just be the copper tubes inside are covered with scale or algae or small debris that you can't see. We'll do the same thing. The whole idea on a heat exchanger is you're dissipating heat off of the coolant. Last one I bought, this one I bought for $45. And I can't tell you how many times I've used it. I check thermostats with it, I check heat exchangers with it, I check raw water pumps with it, I've checked 8V71 TIs with it. It just has a million uses.
Find bad circuit breakers in the panel with it too, bad electrical connection.
You can, because I hadn't thought about that one, but you can. Batteries. Everybody has a voltmeter, everybody has a volt ohm meter. It will not tell you if a battery is bad, unless the battery's dead. This will tell you if a battery's bad. This is a load tester. You can buy it, you can buy it again, you can buy it anywhere. Directions are actually printed on it. Kindergartner can use this thing. The only thing I tell you is be careful when you use it, make sure your battery fluid is full before you use it. The reason is you're going to clamp this onto your battery, and then by pressing and holding this switch, you are literally jumping positive to negative through what they call a toaster. This thing will actually turn red and it'll smell. It gets hot. But you're loading the battery down for a specific period of time, and then based on your amp hours of your battery, you read the scale, and it tells you where your battery condition is. You're looking for a percentage, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Good, weak, bad.
What are the conditions of the battery at that point? They have to be fully charged?
You really want to test it fully charged. Yeah. You don't want to test it weak because you're gonna load it down hard. Voltmeters and load testers will not tell you if your alternator's working. Amp meters will tell you unless you've taken them out, because the needle will move. One of my customers turned me on to this tool, and I sent the link to Dick Moreland. And believe it or not, I have accomplished a first, because I have a new gadget that he doesn't have yet. You heard the word yet? Yeah. This one's actually made by Craftsman. What makes this one different than all the others, this is an amp clamp, by the way. It's a multimeter, but it's also an amp clamp. And let me just go ahead and give you the part number for those of you that are taking notes here. 73756. That's the Craftsman part number. What makes it different is this is the only one I have been able to find that will measure DC amps as well as AC. And it's Craftsman. It's not a special order. I actually got this one out of the store. You can find it on Amazon. It's going to run you roughly 140 to 150 bucks. But you want to test an alternator? Just clamp this over top of your negative cable, turn everything on while the engine's running. You'll be able to read the amperage output right on the scale of what your alternator's doing. Voltmeters won't tell you it's working. Voltmeters will tell you it's putting out the volts. It won't tell you how many amps it's putting out. Any questions?
No, you said that was a voltmeter also?
It is. It's a full function volt ohm meter,
Okay.
digital.
So you have wires and everything where...
Yep, it comes with a full set of probes, plus it comes with a pyrometer probe, so it has a temperature probe as well.
So
Now,
you don't need a real voltmeter then?
I love my fluke meter. And I had my fluke meter before I had this one, but this one is taking over because it does have the DC amp clamp on
But
it.
it doesn't have ohms in it, resistance.
Yes,
It does? Oh,
Yes.
okay, so it's all in one.
it's everything this one is, but it has the DC amp clamp.
Checks continuity.
Yep.
And a built-in hanger.
Yeah,
What you
bigger.
will find is you will see a million of these out there at Home Depot, at Lowe's, anywhere you want to go. You have to make sure it measures DC amps. And literally, this is the only one I've been able to find.
Fluke makes an adapter for the fluke meters, it plugs in a separate adapter, plug it into the voltmeter.
The last adapter I bought from Fluke, I had to call my mortgage officer first. I bought the outboard ignition adapter for my Fluke to measure the CDM ignition system. I had $300 in that thing for it, and I choked. Okay, everybody got to see what this looks like and how it reads?
You have to just wipe that down between stuff, just wipe it.
Just wipe
from
it
that
off.
acid and stuff. Just wanted,
Yeah, flush it nice with.
Want to go do the honors for me outside?
okay, I thought about that for you.
Can I drink it?
No, you don't want to drink that. You can drink it, but we'll be carrying you to the hospital later.
I'm gonna be on dialysis later this
Take that outside. There's 2 drops in there. That's all I need. That's
Is it this
50.
answer?
That's your drug test.
That's 50-50.
Random, Scott, random.
I don't.
Yeah, it's random.
Empty your
Looks
pocket.
like a holding
Scott,
tank sample. This
do
is
it
a
outside
test.
because of the floors.
Over there.
Out on the deck.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a holding tank sample.
Well, you guys weren't looking.
You literally, Scott, literally just 2 small drops, flip the lid closed.
Okay.
And then look at it. Okay. Back to diagnostics. How many people have a test light on their boat? Good. This is probably the most used tool on your boat, I would venture to say. You can test circuits with it. The only thing you can't do is test continuity. But you can trace circuits with it. You can take, I have taken a roll of wire that was 40 or 50 foot long and clamped onto this end and measured wires from the bridge down to the bottom just to find a wire that I was looking for.
Watch out for that pointer thing.
The only thing about the test light that I will tell you is, and they taught me this in college, proper procedure for a test light is every time you hook it up, you clamp this on the negative, but you always touch the positive first. Every single time. Never take for granted that this works. Clamp it on, touch positive, the lights then go do your testing. I've caught myself a couple of times, I'm not going to lie, I've been, this thing should have power, this thing should have power, this thing should have power, get down to the positive. I don't have power. Test light, very inexpensive, but its value is incredible.
Lee,
Yeah.
do you, every time you go to a wire, do you always poke a new hole?
A what?
A new hole?
No.
Okay,
No.
because I've seen some,
If you're going to replace wire, use the existing wire as a fish tape. Tie the new wire to the old wire and pull it through. Like that?
Pretty cool stuff.
You like that?
I tried to smoke it and light it over. Look
The screen you're reading on this one, by the way, now is ethylene glycol. That's your green antifreeze.
I thought it was.
You ain't right, boy.
I know
You just ain't
you ain't
right.
wrong.
Holding
Something in
tank.
the
it. We
middle.
say we're all here because we're not all there.
That's exactly right. Any questions so far? Then I'm going to go through one more item here, and I think that, believe it or not, that's really going to put me back on schedule. I am here all weekend. Don't hesitate to come up and grab me and ask me questions all weekend. I don't care. I love talking boats. I love talking motors. My specialty is electrical and engines. But I am going to get out one more little toy that I have in my arsenal, and I'm going to show it off. How many people in here have seen the Mecha Hoist? The Mecha Hoist.
Mecca, not Mega, right?
Mecca.
Mecca hoist, yes sir.
Mecha Hoist. That would be Dick Moreland's great invention called the engine hoist that fits on any Commander. I have one. He has one. He let me have the blueprints, so I built my own. But I want to show it off a little bit as soon as my laptop decides to come back to work. The Mega Hoist is a three-piece system of 2 uprights, a cross bridge with a pulley system, and then a 2-ton chain fall. It will fit under the roof in a 31 or 27. It will fit on a 38 with no trouble. And it's not ANSI certified to its weight bearing, but when I built mine inside the shop I was in at the time, the first thing I did was I took one of my 427s with the manifolds, with the transmission, which was a Paragon HJ7, and the whole 9 yards, and I cranked on it. I said, I want to see it break. And I lifted that sucker all the way off the ground. And it didn't break, so I know it's good to at least 1,500 pounds.
Lee, while you're doing that, I'm going to ask you a really stupid question.
There is no stupid question.
Thank
Go ahead and ask.
It makes me feel better already. On a 410, God forbid, if I ever had to swap engines, how in the world do you get those engines out of there? You start
You got a
cutting
side
deck?
door?
No, you got to cut one with a chainsaw?
You don't have a side door? Do you have the inserts in the companionway door like the 38 does?
Whether the stairway lifts
When
up?
the stairway comes, no, when the stairway comes up on the top deck where your door frame actually is,
Yes,
look inside your door frame.
yes,
Are there bungs or?
yes,
There are bungs?
yes, sir.
You take those screws out, there's 2 inserts that come out. When they come out, it makes it just wide enough to get the short block through.
Okay, what do you
Take
do?
off the heads, take off the manifolds, take off the transmission, bring the short block up through the hole.
Oh, man, I'm just going to go to church and pray.
No, I was,
Hey, I gave you a notepad with my card.
it's funny you say that, because I was just down, just south of the Ambassador Bridge yesterday afternoon, down in the bilge of Jim and Jenny's boat. I had to change out some fuel filters while underway, and I was laying down there, and I'm looking, duplicate boat, 410, and I'm looking up underneath there, I'm saying, there is no hatches, there's no removable anything, and I'm looking up here, and I'm like, how in the hell would you ever get these engines out?
Chainsaw.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I mean, like when Mike Adams, 47, when he had to get his engines out, there's hatch covers that pull out the entire salon, like, well, I guess we call it the living room floor, and they just don't have.
Hey, at least you don't have a 55.
Yeah, well, yeah, look at that.
Was that the
Now, is that a
only-
factory
That's
thing?
the only way to get out of the big boat.
Yikes.
Was that cut or was that factory?
Yes. Okay, here's the explanation. Because I actually did some good shots of this. Yes, this is the famous Whitney's 55. Let me just flip through these real quick. It is framed, bolted, and structured under the headline. There are 11 7-inch long silicon bronze bolts that go through a framed structure. And I don't know this for a fact, but it's very possible the 47s could be that way as well. I know that the 55s and the 60s, this is the only way the engines are coming out. There is no side door on these boats. Now, you can actually see the framing. And my picture's not that great with this projector, but if you can see that darker square right there, those are little blocks, and those little blocks are where the bolts come through. And they get into the framed piece. And that's what the framed piece looks like. And what I did after that was, I mean, at this point, we've taken a Sawzall, worst day of my life, taking a Sawzall to a 55-foot boat. There is a little indented edge in the gel coat all the way around this hatch. It shows you exactly where to cut. But at this point, you know, we've cut the gel coat, so I'm going to drill 4 more holes. I got to have a glass man out there anyway to put the panel back in. Put the eye bolts in, set up a bridle system, because that roof's not light either. And then we swing it off with a crane.
That's thinking there. Good job.
So, 410 doesn't look so bad now, does it?
I'm glad we did what we did.
Now, Byron brought his 427s up through his side ice cream door in short block mode, and then he turned around and sent those 6 BT diesels back down that way.
Oh.
Yeah, the strip of 427s down.
You probably wouldn't have mind having one of those, would
No,
you?
it wasn't bad. I made like a seesaw thing, and we just set it up there, put a come along on it, tilted it up, just, cranked it down.
That gives you an idea how big the framed hole is on a 55 and a 60. It's just the framework.
Build them down.
It's got a box frame around it.
47 is the same.
My God, look at that. 8V71?
8V71 TIs, twin turbo and intercooled. Had to take one of the turbos off each engine to get them out.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
He's a bigger hole.
And there's what went in. Same thing, just new and freshly rebuilt.
Now, you actually do the rebuilds and the motors?
No. No. I let somebody else write that warranty paperwork.
But you'll do the removal and
I
installation?
do the removal and installation. If I've got a couple minutes. I want to take a second here and talk about blisters. Anybody have to deal with blisters on their boat yet? We've always talked about blisters on the farm, and there are people that cannot understand for the life of them how this little tiny blister right here could cost $5,000 when it's all said and done. I did a blister job on a Lancer a few years back, and the first thing I did was I had the bottom sandblasted, because you want to get past. It's exactly like doing dental work. You want to get the cavity cleaned out, but you want to work your way out to get to good tooth. Same thing with fiberglass. So when you find 24 blisters on the bottom of a Lancer and you want to have it fixed, you send it out to the sandblaster, and those 24 blisters quickly turn into that on both sides. That looks better. Now,
Was that a salty Lancer?
no. Well, I don't know. I don't know where he bought it. Let's put it that way. So, that's with the blisters exposed, and that's how deep they get. And then you notice there's a trail. You can actually follow the water that went down. All a blister is, by the way, is water getting up underneath the gel coat and delaminating the gel coat from the glass. That's what a blister is.
So what we're seeing is glass underneath, whatever, that's gel coat that's left outside.
The white is gel coat, the darker areas is glass. Matter of fact, you can see the glass really good in that one. But you dig out until you find where the gel coat and the glass is come back together, is still bonded. Now, the expensive part is after you have exposed all the blisters, the expensive part comes in storage. You're going to sit 6 to 8 months just to get it dry enough before you can start fixing it. You have to use a moisture meter on the hull. You have to be under 1%, 1/10. You have to be within 1/10 to 0.3%. The easiest way to know that spec is just to read the Interlux directions. This boat sat out for 1.5 years before I could even start building the glass back up. Okay, so shortening this up a little bit. Once the blisters are exposed, then you have to build the glass back up, and you don't just put a piece of glass over it and go. You have to bring the glass back up in layers, and they have to go wider as you start. They go wider to narrower coming up. Same way you exposed it. Once you get done with the glass, and that's bonded, then you have to come in with the fairing. The fairing is what turns the rough to the smooth. You come into that. Now you have to sand each one of those down until you get to a smooth bottom. When you get to the smooth bottom, then you come up with your barrier coat. Now your barrier coat's the tricky part of it. Why? Barrier coat has to be applied in coats on a time schedule between coats. On this little Lancer right here, I had to have a full 13-hour day available to get the barrier coat on. you get all the coats necessary. Did everybody get to see this? So everybody knows how it works? It's a pretty cool piece of equipment, isn't it? There is no question in my mind and my insurance company's mind when I tell you your boat's winterized, it's covered. There won't be any issues. So once you get the boat down and you get it smooth, then you bring up your barrier coat. And then after you get your barrier coat, of course, then you finally get to the part where everybody likes is you do the color. And after you get the color put on, the object of the game is you've taken all those holes and you've turned it into that. So, you're looking at just under 2 years. It was a year and 10 months start to finish on that job. That was a 23 Lancer. And it was just for a couple of dozen blisters. Price tag a little over 10 grand.
So where you see one, you'll always have more hiding there, is what you're saying.
Here's my theory on blisters, just like everybody else's theory on blisters. If it's the size of a quarter or smaller, don't fool with it. Just let it go. If you've got a whole bunch of measles in one area, that might be something you want to attack over the winter because it could be a delam problem. It could be a delamination problem, and not as much a blister. If you've just got a few placed blisters on the hull, that's one of those, let's watch it, monitor it, and see what it does from year to year. Normally what you're going to see is they're going to be exposed a little bit when you come out of the water. By springtime they're going to be gone again. They're going to have shrunk. But the only time you really want to fool with blisters, if you really have to, is when you've got a whole bunch in one concentrated area.
But you said you saw them in a line and kind of showed that they were, is that showing?
Well, that line didn't show until after we sandblasted.
Right, but what caused it to all be in that line?
I had about 4 big blisters that were like here, here, and here. And you could see there had to be a line under there. You just couldn't see the line.
So is the water coming from the exterior or from the interior of the boat to get in there?
Exterior.
Exterior,
Yeah.
okay.
Gel coat is porous material.
Okay.
One of the reasons we use bottom paint.
Is there any way of telling when someone didn't do the laborious job you did?
Oh yeah, there's a way to tell. You can measure thickness. The barrier coat the barrier coat is not measured in the number of coats. And the way Interlux will check behind you on the barrier coat is simply they'll come out with a gauge and it has to be a certain mil thickness.
Like 4 mils, I think, or something?
I don't remember what it is without looking it up, and I look it up each time because let me tell you something, if you ever try to beat Interlux, if they're a warranty game, they'll come out with more diagnostic equipment than you can shake a stick at.
Is there any way to speed up the process?
Nope. You put it in a enclosed heated barn, put a dehumidifier in it, you can spend tons of money, but you're really not going to speed up the process that quickly. You could do what they call what is it called? Vacuum wrapping. And then you could hook up, you could shrink wrap it with a fitting, and you could hook up a dehumidifier hose, and that would draw moisture out. But at the same time, by shrink wrapping it, you run the risk of trapping the moisture in at the same time the temperature changes.
That's exactly how they put in the long-term war reserve storage of tanks in Europe.
Vacuum wrap.
Shrink wrap them close and put in a hose that it controls the humidity.
This is the mecha hoist, and this is where I'm going to wrap it up today because we're supposed to be done at 11:45 and it's 11:40, so I'm going to give you a quick tour of the mecha hoist. These 2 boards are actually calculated thickness, and the reason they're calculated thickness is so once I get the engine up on deck, it's high enough I can actually do something with it. But the boards also serve as stability. But this is what it looks like when it's broken down. It's like I said, it's a 3-piece system. You've got 2 legs, and this is all thick steel wall, rectangular, thick wall, rectangular steel tubing. This is also thick wall steel tubing with a piece of channel on each end, and then the 3 pieces just fit together. I'm going to show you how in a minute. That's how it sits when it sits on the deck. everybody's seen the A-frames, and everybody's seen the quads and everything else. This actually gives you a lot of room to work with. Because those boards that I showed you, the boards sit right in here, inside the channel on each side. They keep the legs from twisting. But they also serve as a safety. So here's one set up on a 31 Commander, pulling the port engine up, changing oil pump. You got your boards, they slide out and they slide in. You got your chain fall. One of these days I'm going to upgrade first class. I'm going to put in a battery operated winch. I'm getting tired of pulling that chain. Just stand there and do this and watch it come up. Okay, so we get it all hooked up. We get everything disconnected and up she comes. And then once she's up, we slide the boards in. See how thick these boards are? Now you know why they're that thick. We bring the engine back down, we set the engine on the boards, we leave the chain tight, and we're safe. We can crawl up under there and do anything we want to do now. We didn't have to pull the boat out of the water, we didn't have to bring in a crane, and on this boat here in particular, you see the transmission's even still hooked up. That's a 350F with a Paragon P33 on the back.
Is that Darren's boat?
That is Darren's boat. Just different angles here showing how it exactly works.
Any issues with the weight on the deck? The legs?
I haven't had any. I mean, I check all that before I do, but in the front and the back of the hatch, there is mahogany structure underneath, going across with legs coming up. So the reason you have such wide channel legs on that hoist is to spread it out a little bit anyway.
So what would be the reason to do an oil pump?
Oil pressure goes out on a brand new engine.
Brand new, okay.
That was a brand new engine, and it had oil pressure issues, and I had to go up underneath and pull the oil pump out. And because another company built the engine, I also plastic gauged it. I will show you what plastic gauging is too before I leave here today.
Yeah, so I was kind of curious. Rebuild, I would think, if you were going that far.
Who said?
I was just a question, you talking about the pickup or the pump?
No, the pump itself.
You have all the engine to get to the pump?
Yep, oil pumps inside the oil pan on small block Chevrolet.
Okay, dude, no, I thought that was just a pickup there. All right.
No, pickup comes up, bolts into the pump, and the shaft from the distributor comes down and drives it. Pump's actually down in the pan.
Are the pickups welded on marine or anything like that, or are they just pressed in?
No, they're different. They're pressed in, but they also have an extra leg that actually has a main bolt running through them to hold them for stability. Because you don't want the pickup up in the front of the pan on a marine engine. The engine sits at an angle all the time anyway, but when you get up on plane, it sits on even more of an angle.
The older small blocks had an access panel. In the cast oil pans, they had an access panel where you could actually get to it. And I did change an oil pump. Took a right hander and a left hander and some cut-off wrenches. But you could get up in there and change that. 283, yeah.
Haven't seen it yet, but I'm not sure I want to take that trip.
Believe me, I still got the little cut-off 7/8.
Let me give you all an idea, because some of you this looks like a major job. Okay, this looks like big ticket item. This was a 1 weekend job. This was a day and a half. It's 2.5 hours from the time I started to the time the engine was sitting on the logs. It's not much to disconnect. You got a couple of battery cables, you got your raw water hose, you undo your coupler, you undo your exhaust hose, and then you undo eight lag bolts on your motor mounts, and up she comes. About 2 hours she was sitting up on the deck. The rest of the time was spent underneath in the oil pan, checking everything out, putting the right oil pan in, or right oil pump in, because the rebuilder put in a high volume, high pressure pump.
I remember that.
I posted on it quite
that long ago.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was about 2 years ago, and what it did was it was pumping all the oil up to the top, and then the oil pan went dry, and we'd be running around 3,100 RPMs, and all of a sudden the oil pressure just goes, drops down. Pull it down off plane, straight back up. So it drove you nuts.
Any secrets on oil pans on marine as opposed to the life I spent trying to get automotive right?
Spend the majority of your time on reassembly, making sure the gasket area is clear and making sure the seal's right. You don't want to pull it up twice.
No.
This is what the inside of the bottom end of your gas engine looks like, for those of you who've never seen it. Just a quick tour here. These are what's called your rods. These are the connecting rods that go to your pistons. So if they tell you you got a rod bearing going, the rod bearing sits right in here. And then there's a cap that goes over it, and this is your crankshaft. It rides on your crankshaft. And then this big cap here is called your main. So if they tell you your mains and rods are gone, it's the bearings that are under those caps. They're worn out. That's where your low oil pressure comes from in most cases. The bearing material has gotten so thin that the oil can't build pressure. You see these head drilled passages in this crankshaft. That's where your oil comes out and stays in the bearing.
And you would know that because of the oil analysis test?
Yep. Bearing material has different layers of metal at different thicknesses in the bearing. If you do an oil analysis, which just requires you taking a clean bottle, putting some oil in it, you send it off to a company, they will send you back a 3-page report with every single chemical they found in that oil. They will tell you if it has antifreeze residue in it, it will tell you if it has babbitt, clevite, copper, and the way you tell those is that's the 3 materials that are generally used in bearings. If you get down to the copper, the bearings are done. You're pretty much out of bearing material.
So what are the materials again that's included?
Babbitt, clevite, and copper are the most common. But they'll take this into English. They'll tell you what you're looking at. They'll tell you got antifreeze in your oil. They'll tell you got bearing material in your oil. Just remember though, if you see antifreeze in your oil, you have to think back a little bit because you may have changed an intake or you may have changed the head gasket at one time and some of that antifreeze just dribbled down in there. There's no way to get it all out. So look for a concentration of it to know that you've actually got something legal.
Did you ever hear the old adage about the penny on the journals of the crank?
No.
You take the penny, that's what all log mechanics teach you.
I thought that was the way you measure tire tread.
You take a penny on the journal of a crank, and if you leave any kind of mark at all, especially any copper material at all, even a trace of it on the journals, throw it away.
Huh.
You know, you're going to even hardly get it to turn.
So then after you change your oil pump, you set it back down, you bolt it back up, and then you go for a sea trial. When you go for a sea trial, you're done. But that's what the mech always looks like. A plastic gauge. Do y'all remember we talked about in the beginning how to tell, you know, does the hour meter tell me anything? No, the hour meter doesn't tell you anything about past. There's two ways you can tell about an engine's history. The first one is, as I said earlier, is diagnosis. You can do a compression test on it. You can do an oil analysis on it. But diesel trucks are interesting situations. I am missing one here.
No, when you go to compression.
Diesel trucks are interesting. The big trucks that run up and down the highway, you're gonna love this. You see a truck that's wrecked, you can't see anything left on the cab. It's just a flat molten mess. You can't even tell what brand it was. I used to work in a body shop in a truck shop. They bring it in, and you look at it, oh, it's totaled, it's done, that's it, that's all there is to it. It's not totaled until somebody has pulled the main bearings and plasticated. They will put a whole new cab on a frame if the engine is still in decent shape. I've just seen it happen too many times now. Some of the newer condos where the cabs are a little more expensive, probably not. There's probably way more to it. But one of the things they check is they will plastic gauge the bearings because plastic gauging actually tells you the life of the engine. When I did this oil pump job, I'd had another company that rebuilt these engines because the guy didn't want crate motors. He wanted to keep the same blocks in the boat for number matching, et cetera, which doesn't mean anything, but either way, you do what the customer wants. So having another company doing this, he did the wrong oil pump, I decided I got the pan down, I want to go ahead and plastic gauge the bearings. So here's what you do. You take one of the caps off, and you see this little teeny tiny piece of plastic right here. And there's another piece right there just to show you what size they are. You stick that in, stick the bearing cap back up, you torque it to spec, and after you torque it to spec, you spin the engine a couple of times by hand, then you take the cap back off. Now you see what your little tiny piece of string is turning into? And then what you do is you measure the width based on the paper, and it tells you what the clearance is between the bearing and the crankshaft. That is the only absolutely way to know how worn out the bottom end of the engine is. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of money. But if you're absolutely that set on wanting to know what shape the bearings are in, that's the most accurate way of knowing. It's plastic aging. This engine was in great shape. We put it back together and sent it down the road. That's where it is. Okay, we're late. I'll take any questions you got. Give me your time, and I hope I was able to give you some information that you
The best oil.
There is no best oil. Sorry about that. Bottom line is this. The API certification that your engine calls for in your Commander is probably met or exceeded by anything out there on the market right now. If you want to use synthetic, use synthetic. If you want to use dinosaur oil, use dinosaur oil. The only thing I will tell you is don't switch back and forth.
Okay. Okay.
Once the seals are attained to a specific oil.
Bye.
If you've run dyno oil for years and years and years, and you switch over to synthetic, you run the risk of starting leaks. Super disc has been very cumbersome over the years in that you could search, but you had to go through each individual year folder and then research. Let me tell you, version 7, I have it on my laptop and I was going to bring it out today and I ran out of time, but version 7 has what's called the new master index on it. The new master index, you can search by author, or you can search by post number, or you can search by subject. And it is just that. It is a master index. It will give you the link that will search every year that's been archived.
Amen.
We've been waiting for it, and it's here, and somebody in the club did all the work. I don't know who it was. It wasn't
This young lady right here.
this young lady right here. I gotta tell you, as many years as we've waited for that, it is a blessing.
Please stand up and identify yourself so that we know which person you are.
Yes.
Colleen DeGarry.
Okay.
Awesome.
And George and Colleen are in the process of restoring a 55. They have the bridge from
They have
Whitney's
the bridge
old.
from Whitney's boat.
Very cool.
There you go.
What happened to Whitney's boat?
But yeah, she took all the trouble of us having to go through 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3 with every single search time. And she's got it all in one master index. You can type the subject in. And I can tell you, I tried it out yesterday. Dick Moreland's very first post to the club. Anybody want to take a guess what the post number was? If you didn't see it yesterday. No.
Good guess.
Robert Cutchins had post number 1 because Robert Cutchins, by the way, if you didn't know, is the gentleman that actually brought this club to the internet. Dick Moreland was post number 4. That was his very first posting. And I wasn't too late into this club. I came in late 99 or early 2000, but my very first posting was 1820. That's how busy we got that quick. So, thank you again for all of you coming, and I appreciate it, and I hope I was able to teach you something.
Thank you.
Feel free to ask questions.
Thank you.